Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, it's a Monday during football season, which can only mean one thing. It's a Michigan Monday podcast on the Buckeye Weekly Podcast feed. And I got to tell you, Tony, I laughed pretty hard when the ABC broadcast of the Michigan-Colorado State game, or ESPN broadcast, whatever it was, opened up, and it was presented by Arby's, because I was like, man, this is going to be an exceptionally nihilist Arby's kind of game. And boy, it was. Michigan, whatever it was, 51-7, nothing matters, enjoy Arby's.
Yes, and that'll do it for the show, because I don't know that much more needs to be said. 51-7, Michigan, as you said, over Colorado State. And we knew going in that this is going to be ugly, and that these first three Michigan Monday shows are essentially going to be carbon copies of each other. You got Colorado State to start the season, then it's Hawaii as the meat of this crap sandwich, and then UConn, which is, I don't want to call it bread. That's too good for it. Just the crust of the bread, perhaps. It's just two crusts. And the crap portion of Hawaii, no disrespect.
This is a chance for Michigan. Next week's a chance for 2 weeks, I guess. It's a chance for Michigan to have a transitive win over Central Connecticut State University, which you don't. I mean, how many teams have made the college playoff with that kind of? That's the kind of resume booster for your college football playoff that just not everyone can claim.
Right? Yeah, and you don't want to take stuff like that for granted, because when it comes down to the minutia of which playoff team, these top four versus the fifth team, you're going to want that transitive win in that mix. So, Tom, the starting quarterback was Cade McNamara, as Jim Harbaugh told us.
You used the correct tense there. The starting quarterback was Cade McNamara.
Yeah. And next week it'll be J.J. McCarthy, and then Jim Harbaugh will see from there who starts game 3 and beyond. And who's to say? Who knows who is going to be the starting quarterback for Game 3? Tom, I'll just give everybody Cade McNamara's stats from Saturday. 9 of 18 passing for 136 yards, with 1 touchdown, at least 1 dropped interception, and the big gainer, a 61-yarder. The big gain on the day, 61 yards to Roman Wilson, was a screen caught at the line of scrimmage, and Roman Wilson did the rest. The lack of a downfield threat is, I don't know that it's Michigan's receivers, because they have some good receivers. Cade McNamara showed nothing that we haven't seen, and I think we are both in agreement this was his last start as a Michigan football player, barring any injuries to J.J. McCarthy down the road.
I think that's really the only caveat that is going to change anything, because it was, it wasn't just, 9 for 18, and it was kind of uninspired, and you didn't see anything that was anything other than, like, Cade McNamara looks like a pre-Troy Smith, Jim Tressel quarterback. It's like, well, there's certain things he can do pretty well. Nothing exciting, just kind of a game manager. And J.J. McCarthy just feels like, and has felt like for 2 years, I think since day one, we've basically been talking about these two guys in the same way. Cade McNamara is just like, he is what he is. He is a early Alabama Nick Saban kind of guy, where it's like, if you have a good enough defense, then, you can win with this guy. That's sort of the Jim Tressel, like Craig Krenzel model too. It's like, it's fine. Like, if the rest of the team is good enough, this guy won't keep you from getting to where you want to get to. But he's not going to bring a whole ton to the table. And JJ, just watching the first half of that game, the drives in the first half were punt, touchdown, which was that Roman Wilson touchdown, field goal, and one of those was only a field goal because a horrendous nightmare of a pass decision got overturned on that was intercepted, got overturned on replay, and so they got a field goal out of it instead of an INT. Punt, touchdown, and that was just a long Blake Corum run, I think, on that one, and then another field goal. And it's like, if you're kicking 3 field goals in the red zone, and then J.J. McCarthy comes in, and immediately, first red zone possession, J.J. McCarthy has this electric run from 20 yards out. It was like, as soon as he hit the end zone, I was like, And you remember when Ted Ginn returned the punt against Michigan in 2004 and Brent Musburger screams, and this baby's over this race. That was it. J.J. McCarthy was about the 10-yard line, and I'm going, yep, this quarterback battle is over.
I've said that this decision by Harbaugh, the way he's going about it is kind of genius because he's giving Cade McNamara an opportunity to keep the job. But there looked to be confidence issues with Cade McNamara in that game. You could see him on the bench. He was upset at times, questioning himself, and certainly looking over his shoulder because he knows what's happening next week. And it's, he was put in a difficult situation, which is what you're supposed to do to your quarterbacks. And let's see how they respond. You try to do it in practice to come up with all of these different ways to prepare them for the season. And now that he is in the season and he has this thing weighing over him, I don't think he responded as well as Jim Harbaugh was hoping against a bad defense. And let's not forget that this is Colorado State he's playing, and he's completing 50% of his passes. I think did he start 1 for 5? And that one was just a quick screen to Roman Wilson. Just the inability to threaten a defense also hampers the running game, which is, we'll get into that as well. But, Cade McNamara took them to the playoffs last year. Somehow, he was the quarterback of the team that went to the playoffs. Did Craig Krenzel take Ohio State to a national championship? He made some key plays, but a lot of people, there's 15 different players that you can take off that team and the national title doesn't happen. So I don't know that he gets credit for taking them there. Just I don't know that Cade McNamara gets credit for taking Michigan there, but you kind of reward him. And not having J.J. McCarthy in the spring to take the job then was something that helped McNamara out as well. I'm wondering also why when J.J. McCarthy comes in, he doesn't throw as much. And is this just a design of, he's the change of pace guy as long as Cade McNamara is the quarterback? Or is there concern about the mistakes that he made, even though he is just as prone to make mistakes in the running game as he is through the air? I'm interested to see how much they open it up with him next week because they don't need him to run. And if he's carrying the ball 15 times, that's a concern to me.
Right. Well, if he is your number one guy, you're going to limit. I mean, this is with the old Urban Meyer model with J.T. Barrett. When you're playing Penn State, you might need J.T. Barrett to run the ball 15 times. When you're playing, go back to the year they were playing Hawaii, just like they're going to be next week, that Michigan's going to be next week. I don't think J.T. Barrett ran the ball more than twice or something in that game. I mean, you didn't need him to run the ball, so he didn't run the ball, and you just sort of save those hits for a game where you really need it. So I would expect McCarthy's throwing the ball a little more. I do wonder if you kind of have two guys who are on opposite ends of the confidence spectrum, where McNamara he was just constantly checking down. And I think there were 2 or 3 third downs where he checks down to a guy who's short of the sticks, and it's 3rd and 5, and he's throwing a 3-yard pass, and it's maybe that guy makes a guy miss. There was one where he, I think it was Cornelius Johnson was kind of running an out, and he just overshot him, and it was short of the sticks anyway. And there was another one where he checked down to maybe Blake Corum, and Corum got tackled a yard short, and then I think they converted the 4th down on that one. But you're constantly checking down. You for years have tracked how many yards in the air are these balls actually going, and his McNamara finished with 9 for 18 for 136 yards. Well, 61 of those yards, almost half of those yards were on that one pass that was in the backfield. So it traveled, -2 yards from the line of scrimmage, something like that. He looks like he's just really worried about making mistakes, and he's not pushing anything. And the other option is Michigan's receivers aren't getting open deep. We're not getting open sufficiently deep. So yeah, I think that's a confidence issue for him. And we've seen J.J. McCarthy been a little Leroy Jenkins at times. I mean, you go back to the first game of I think it was the first game or second game last season, one of the directional Michigan teams, and he threw a across his body, diagonal across the field, late throw on the run, and threw it 50 yards in the air and got a long touchdown, I think. And, we'll see how much of that has, sort of been flogged out of him over the last 12 months. But, it feels like the answer to this question is very obvious about who should be the starting quarterback, and I think everyone in that building, including Cade McNamara, probably knows the answer is J.J. McCarthy. It'll be interesting to see how J.J. McCarthy has grown in terms of willingness to check it down and willingness to not try and go for everything all at once when he has the opportunity next week.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Does he become more conservative? Because you're trying to be like the guy who had the job. Like when JT Barrett and Cardale Jones in 2015, JT Barrett was trying to do what Cardale did, which meant JT wasn't as good as he normally is. Cardale Jones, every time he made a mistake, he was looking towards the sideline, kind of like Cade McNamara was. And when you have this, you're not being yourself. But that being said, J.J. McCarthy, as himself, can't be the freshman. He needs to be the more mature sophomore, that second-year guy who has made his mistakes and learned from them. And I think if you polled every single Big Ten coach, like which Michigan quarterback would you rather face, they would tell you Cade McNamara, because he's a known quantity, and that quantity isn't very much. You're not scared of him. J.J. McCarthy, you're scared of. Now, you may get a free turnover from him, but you're also going to be terrified of what he's going to be doing after the snap, gets flushed out, or the read option that he can do. And that makes everything else just the unknown of what he can do and the known of what he can do combined are much scarier than the knowns and unknowns of Cade McNamara, because I think if your defense just holds onto the ball, you're going to get an interception or two from Cade McNamara that just comes to you. Whereas, you have to kind of count on J.J. McCarthy to put one on the ground or something like that. And I still am very interested to see what he is throwing the ball 30 times. And will we even see that? Because this is a conservative guy in Jim Harbaugh. You won't need to. You certainly won't need to throw it more than, 14 or 15 in the first half, something like that. But I think you do want to get McCarthy going just to, give him an opportunity to get into the flow. And I'm looking forward to it. And I think he makes the entire offense better. And I'm wondering, the team sees the two of them and the way they act, like on the sidelines and stuff. I wonder, you need a quarterback to be upbeat and to be confident, and that's the quarterback you'll follow. And so even if they like Cade McNamara because of what they went through with him this year, like if the demeanor doesn't change, then they're going to follow the guy who is the that looks like the leader, and that may become McCarthy here in short order.
Yeah, and I think you kind of have seen the ceiling for a Cade McNamara-led Michigan team, where if you've got a couple first-rounders on your defensive line to really pressure, you got a pretty good solid defense overall, you've got a pretty good offensive line, and you've got Cade McNamara as your quarterback, well, you can win the Big Ten, and you can go to the college football playoff, and you can be, we have Georgia football at home. Like that's, your mom is like, you're at the store, and you're like, I want Georgia football because they've got a great defense, and they've got a quarterback who's not going to beat you, and they're really physical, and they can run the ball. It's like, no, we have Georgia at home, and Georgia at home is last year's Michigan team. And then Georgia played Michigan, and Michigan went home. So it feels like that's kind of the ceiling for a Cade McNamara team. With J.J. McCarthy, maybe he's going to be more mistake-prone. I feel like you saw plenty of mistakes, and just, even if it wasn't turnovers, just sort of bad decisions out of Cade McNamara, and indecision out of Cade McNamara. The ceiling is higher to me with J.J. McCarthy. The ceiling was higher to me with J.J. McCarthy last year, too. Like, Cade McNamara is just, he is an is-what-he-is guy. Like, the stuff that he does, and the stuff that he doesn't do is not like, well, maybe he'll grow into that. Like, no, it's just, he can do what he can do, and he can't do what he can't do. J.J. McCarthy, the ceiling is higher. And, I mean, go back a year, we were saying they should probably have been playing J.J. McCarthy more last year because it felt like the ceiling was higher. And ultimately, they had the opportunity to be more with J.J. McCarthy than they did with Cade McNamara. It worked, last year they really hit that ceiling with Cade McNamara, and it was a great season for Michigan, and they get to the playoff, and they beat Ohio State, and they win the Big Ten, and all that kind of stuff. But now it's like, okay, you probably don't have the defense you had last year. No matter what the stats from Saturday say, you're eventually going to play an offensive line better than Colorado State. So you probably don't have quite the defense you had last year. It feels like they're going to have to do something else. They're going to have to go with J.J. McCarthy to have the opportunity to have another championship kind of season.
All right, Tom, and for the rest of the show, let's go ahead and notate it here. We have talked about the quarterbacks. We will talk about J.J. McCarthy next week as well, I'm sure, to break down his first start. But the rest of the show that we talk about, the rest of the offense and the defense, we can just go ahead and cut this portion and copy it into the next two shows as well after this next two Michigan Mondays. So if things start to sound repetitive, that's why. Let's talk about this running game for Michigan. Rushed for 234 yards on the day, 40 attempts. 50 of those yards came on 3 J.J. McCarthy carries. To give you an idea of what he can give that offense, Blake Corum, 76 yards rushing. Donovan Edwards, 64 yards rushing. Both consistent. The longest run there was 19 yards for Corum, 12 yards for Edwards. Freshman C.J. Stokes got in there, and he actually had a nice little 18-yarder as well. He looked quick and fast. But overall, they averaged over 5 yards a carry. Only one tackle for loss in the backfield for Blake Corum. No huge plays, but they were consistent, which you want. Now, we'll say this about the offensive line. They were without starting left tackle Brian Hayes. And so I believe Carson Barnhart got the start, and then he left with a sprained ankle at the end of the first quarter, I believe. So they moved left guard Trevor Keegan out to left tackle, brought in obviously somebody to replace Keegan. So it wasn't like the ideal offensive line. They were missing one starter and then ended up missing two starters. So they did what they could, but no big thoughts from me on the offensive line, the running game. I'm not a doomsayer yet this year, but it was what it was. 13 carries for Corum, 12 for Edwards. Any takeaways, Tom?
It was just it was not incredible. They didn't completely, run the ball all over Colorado State. I mean, all three running backs averaged between 5.3 and 5.8 yards per carry, and that's a good solid day. That is not, if you're really dump trucking a team, you've got running backs in the high 6s, low 7 yards per carry. They didn't have anyone in that range, but it was, sometimes that's skewed by one big run, and like you said, there was not a 70-yard touchdown that would kind of skew those numbers. They were just very consistently able to move the ball. Quarterbacks were protected for the most part. There was one where Trenta Jones got beat just cleanly with a speed rush off of right tackle, and that was oh boy, that was that was the only thing that really stood out as oh boy, that was a bad play for the Michigan offensive line. The rest of the game looked like a very good offensive line, completely overwhelming a not very good defensive line, and just so frequently you saw those running backs running through just very clean holes. There was one where I think it might have been the touchdown run for Corum, where he ran through just an absolutely enormous hole, and wasn't even touched until he was I don't know. I think it wasn't the touchdown, but he wasn't touched 20 yards downfield. You saw several plays like that. That's just, this offensive line is substantially better than the offensive line they're playing against, and guess what? You're probably going to see that for another couple weeks.
I was just looking to see if the 3 field goals were the result of any third and shorts that you didn't pick up. They were all incompletions from Cade McNamara on third and at least 6. So couldn't blame the running game for anything there. And unfortunately, the passing game is, how good could it be when we're spending so much time talking about the inconsistencies of Cade McNamara? But 18 of 28 for the team passing on the day, 206 yards, 1 touchdown, sacked just once. J.J. McCarthy, 4 of 4 for 30 yards. Alan Bowman came in, 5 of 6 for 40 yards. Even Alex Orji came in, their third or fourth string quarterback who can run the ball a little bit as well, came in. So I don't, it was a very vanilla attack, which it didn't, you don't have to make it all that fancy, and nobody really stood out. And you get these situations where, everybody just has a catch. But Cornelius Johnson, 2 catches on 6 targets. That's the concern. Leading receiver is Roman Wilson with 2 catches for 65 yards, of which the long one was 61. The averages here, Tom, are not great, and Eric All had the best average outside of that 61-yarder with a 22-yard reception. Ronnie Bell, 1 catch, 9 yards. I think he had a drop as well. He did have a drop. Again, not much to take away here. I like the potential, but it is what it is.
if we're going to talk for a minute about the quarterback depth, I do want to mention that the touchdowns to snaps on the field ratio, Alex Orji was at the top of that list, which you'd figure that would be the high-scoring guy. I mean, that's a guy whose name just screams, like, lots of scoring, immediate scoring, so that sort of makes sense. As far as the wide receivers go, first of all, let's talk about Ronnie Bell, because, one catch, 9 yards, it's like, in the box score, it's like, whatever. And then you look at you watch the game, and the one catch for 9 yards was really one catch for 3 yards, but there were two guys trying to tackle him, and they didn't quite get him down, and they thought they had him down, and he just kind of kept fighting, and they kind of fought through another guy and turned one catch for 3 yards into one catch for 7 yards, and then fought a little more and turned it into 9 yards. And it was good to see Ronnie Bell back out there. I'm sure it is an uphill battle to tell Ohio State fans, you should be rooting for this guy. It would be good for him to have a good season, but it would be really nice to see Ronnie Bell have a good season after getting hurt in the season opener last year and missing the whole season. So that was good to see. Yeah, the rest of the offense, it was a little like watching Notre Dame's offense against Ohio State, where the Roman Wilson 60-yard touchdown could have been stopped for 2-3 yards, much like that first play to Lorenzo Styles could have been stopped for just a couple of yards, and he broke a tackle, and then all of a sudden turns into 60 or 70 or whatever it was for Lorenzo Styles. Same thing for Roman Wilson. Like, if he gets tackled there, the average yards per attempt for Michigan is like, I don't know. I mean, for at least for Cade McNamara is like, what, 5 yards an attempt, 6 yards an attempt. There's not. I think I would like to see some big plays out of that wide receiver unit. I think that was kind of one of our concerns with them last year as well. You can't just live with Donovan Edwards out of the backfield and Eric All as a tight end. Like, you've got to get production out of the wide receivers, because otherwise, that's kind of what Notre Dame was trying to do. It's like, well, they've got Michael Mayer, and okay, you got to get more production out of your wide receivers, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to keep up. You're not going to be able to score consistently against the better defenses. The good news for Michigan is they've got some time to sort of figure that out, and we'll see what the offense looks like with J.J. McCarthy. You wonder, you can't always see, our guys open downfield on the TV broadcast. They will often not show you that.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of always have the question, are guys really not open, or is Cade McNamara just going, don't make a mistake, don't make a mistake, don't make a mistake, and not throwing it if guys aren't wide open? Because that, it feels like you should be able to get wide open more often than not against a Colorado State defensive back if you're a Michigan wide receiver. But without seeing it, you never really know. So that's a little bit of a caveat. But yeah, you're going to want to see more from the Michigan receivers if they're going to get back to that Big Ten championship kind of level this year.
Also, a huge block by Ronnie Bell on the touchdown catch and run from Roman Wilson. He put his guy, drove him really well, to give you an idea of he's not just a pass catcher. He's doing everything he can for his teammates. Defensively for Michigan, as we said, held Colorado State to 7 points, which came in the fourth quarter. So, in effect, a shutout for the Wolverines. Held the Rams to 82 yards rushing on 39 attempts, 2.1 yards a carry. Here's a little bit of a concern, Tom. If we're looking for reasons to point out some flaws, 16 of 20 passing for Colorado State now, 137 yards, but 16 of 20 passing. I mean, come on, you got to be better than that. You got to make some stuff happen there. The Wolverines get into the backfield 11 times for tackles for loss, 7 sacks. Okay, all right, so I guess that's some decent pass defense if you want to look at numbers and count statistics. So, and a lot of guys, I'm just looking down here, counting up all of the different guys who had at least a half of a sack for Michigan. It looks like about 10 different guys got their hands on a quarterback, which you're not going to have that in a regular game. And we're looking for guys that step up. It was good to see Derek Moore, true freshman, flash, top 50 player. Saw him. I don't even know if he collected any stats. Just one quarterback hurry where I saw him hit the quarterback. But overall, I think the pass rush certainly looked fast. They've got a bunch of different guys that they're trying out. But I don't know what you learn necessarily from this game that tells you who you can put in when you go to Iowa. Although, caveat, Iowa, I don't know why we're including them as that's when things get real.
Yeah, when you have to place an explosive offense like Brian Ferentz's Iowa Hawkeyes, got to. The most important thing for the Michigan defense that game is going to be watch out for safeties. Don't give up too many safeties while you're on defense if you can when you're facing Iowa, I guess.
Stay awake.
This was one where you come into the game going, I don't know that I can see anything that's going to be like, wow, I'm super impressed with this team. I can't, this is definitely a championship team. You could only see like, oh boy, this is going to be a disaster. And you didn't see, oh boy, this was going to be a disaster. This was a Michigan defensive line that was substantially better than the Colorado State offensive line. And if you've ever rooted for a team with a shaky offensive line, you know that can blow up your game, your season very quickly. It blew up Colorado State's game. They couldn't run the ball at all. He was the Colorado State quarterbacks whose name I'm now can't remember, so I'm just going to call him Bradley Van Pelt. Bradley Van Pelt couldn't, it was 16 for 20, but how many times was he back in the pocket on like a third down or a fourth down, and he's holding the ball. It's like the clock in your head should be going off right now, and you're standing there with the ball. There was one where he got strip sacked, and DJ Turner ran it back for a touchdown. There was another one where he got sacked. That was a defensive line teeing off against a much, much worse offensive line. Like, go back to like the Ohio State Akron game last year, and you had a bunch of that where, guys had 2-3 sacks in the game, and it's like, I don't know that this means anything. I don't know that what we saw on Saturday means anything. When Colorado State was in really obvious passing situations, Michigan was just teeing off. Ayabi Anoma, they lined him up real wide on one play, like too wide for the right tackle to get out there. So he just got clean past the right tackle. The running back steps up and he's trying to block a guy who's got like a 5-yard, 6-yard dead sprint head start. Just trucks the running back and just goes right into the quarterback. They credit to Michigan. They took advantage of the wild personnel mismatches they had on the field, and they did exactly what you should do against a team like that. But, I think they are one of many teams that I kind of go, I don't know that I learned anything really week one. Let's see when they play a team with a pulse. So, I don't know, talk to me in October? I don't know. When does that actually happen for Michigan this year?
Well, the Maryland game will be interesting just to see how they react and deal with an actual like passing offense and some talented players in week 4, I believe. And yeah, it should still be a Michigan win, but at least then they're going to be tested, and it may still be somewhat of an open book test, but you still got to put pen to paper on those. The Will Johnson, true freshman cornerback, 5-star recruit out of Michigan, had some nice moments, and I was going to be writing about how he looks really good. Then he gave up a touchdown late. He gave up the touchdown, so I don't want to say bust, but I'm being forced to now. It was good to see him out there as like the number 3 corner. He was almost like rotating him and Jamon Green as they kept DJ Turner. I don't know if he stayed out there the entire time while the game was still in doubt, but I'm not sure if that's a three-person rotation or just, let's throw the freshman out there because what's going to happen? We're not going to lose, and we need to get him ready. Like, I would say continue to play him because you will need him in October and November. December, maybe. Who's to say? Maybe late December. Maybe mid to late December, depending on how the season goes.
He may be one of those guys where it's a little bit of a J.J. McCarthy, Cade McNamara situation where even if he's not the better option right now, by the end of the year he might be, and having an athlete like that might improve your ceiling when the games really matter later in the season. It wouldn't shock me at all if Will Johnson was starting by the time the Ohio State game rolled around. And yeah, the one touchdown, he was the corner who was giving up that one touchdown. He wasn't too far out of position. He could, reach the receiver, but he was, stuck behind. So that wasn't too bad. But yeah, it was, I don't really know that there's that much to take away from this game on the defensive side of the ball, other than, yes, they're better than Colorado State.
I still like Rod Moore. Liked him last year as a true freshman. He had the interception today with like a 37-yard return as this. They play 3 safeties quite a bit as RJ Moten is now he's like what Ohio State's old Bullet was, or what Michigan's Viper was, where he's this hybrid guy because he'll play in the slot and also is sort of a third linebacker, which is probably what he does best because he's not a center fielder. by any means. He's not the fastest guy, so maybe they have a good role for him there. We'll see, but I don't think he can be your nickelback, and they'll have to figure that out. But obviously, do whatever you want against Colorado State, and you'll be fine. The last thing for me, Tom, Mike Sainristil, slot receiver last year, now is like that nickelback now that comes in on passing downs. He had a sack. He was a very willing tackler when behind the line of scrimmage and just getting into the scrum. I did not believe, or maybe I discounted all of the talk coming out of camp about his success defensively. And my thought was, if this is your big thing, if this is your nickelback, your number one nickelback, then you have recruited poorly and you are in trouble. Now, it does definitely mean you have recruited poorly. It doesn't necessarily mean you are in trouble, but I was impressed by what he did. I don't know that it means anything once they're playing real games, but it was good to see him do that, and it was certainly better than the alternative of him just being completely lost.
Well, he was someone who it didn't look like, well, that's the guy who must have just changed sides of the ball. It was like Steel Chambers last year for Ohio State. It wasn't absolutely incredible, but also you didn't look at him and go, that guy was playing running back like 6 months ago, which that is good news as far as the position switches go at this time of year. So, we'll see how he holds up throughout the course of the year and all that. But yeah, I think early returns there were pretty good. I just had a couple other notes. First of all, when J.J. McCarthy came in, ran it in from 20 yards out, Robert Griffin III, who was the on the broadcast, said, quote, he's putting Jim Harbaugh in even more of a bind. And I thought, I don't think you have handicapped this situation correctly. I think he is making Jim Harbaugh's decision a lot easier, is what I think. My only special teams note, Brad Robbins' mustache is fantastic. Like, they should get 4 points every time they kick a field goal just because of that mustache. Like, that is just tremendous. Mylan Bolden Morris, the sister of Michael Morris, first female GA to Power 5 school. That is very cool. Like, that's one of those, you're seeing that more in baseball, like where women are starting, all of a sudden it's like, oh, turns out that if we're, one of the prerequisites of this is not played the sport at this level, that, it turns out women can do these things. How about that? Crazy. Who knew? That is pretty cool. And finally, I love my little advanced analytics. I was looking at some of the advanced box scores. There is a stat called the Game Excitement Index, which charts like changes in win probability, lead changes, how long the game's close, all that kind of stuff. So just for baseline, like the Ohio State Notre Dame game was like a 4.01. Penn State Purdue, 5.69. UNC App State, which was just bananas, that was 5.78. The Backyard Brawl, West Virginia Pitt, one of the greatest games that I've watched in quite a while, 7.19. The Michigan-Colorado State game, 1.39. And it was like, that feels high, but I mean, it's still a very low number, but it still kind of felt high as far as game excitement goes.
I also wanted to mention Mylan Bolden Morris, because as they were going through her qualifications, they did mention, and she could throw a football 55 yards. So it's like, just so you know, like, she may not have played football, but she can still throw a football. And it's like, I wonder how often, as they talk about GAs, they also say, like, how far can Joe Bolden, perhaps the Ohio State GA, former Michigan linebacker, how far can he throw a football? Let us know that sort of stuff. Yes, he could play linebacker, but could he throw a football? Not 55 yards, I'm guessing. But Tom, anything else? Are we good? You got anything else before we go? Because I think I am done.
Yeah, I think I'm done with all of my extensive notes from this game. I watched it in the press box, and then I was like, I'm going to rewatch this at home, and then thought, maybe I'm going to watch the extended highlights at home again, just sort of to refresh my mind on stuff. And even that, it was like 25 minutes. It was like, this is really boring. So, I mean, go back to last week's show. I think we said, like, the first half's going to be really boring and Michigan's going to win 38-7 or something like that. And it was like, at one point, this game was 40, it might have literally been 38-7 at one point. It was like, this game was exactly what I thought it was going to be. And that was not a good thing. But, Michigan's 1-0, and I haven't seen anything to disqualify them from like a Big Ten championship kind of discussion. So I guess that's good for Michigan. So that's something.
Yeah, the first YouTube link that I found, and I've got it DVR'd always in case the full game isn't there. The first one on YouTube I find, I'm watching it, watch the first quarter, and it goes from like the first quarter to the third quarter, and I'm like, do I really need to see the second quarter? I don't know that I do, but I do need to see the second quarter probably more than the third. So then I found another feed with the entire game and watched it there, and obviously took notes, and we'll have a Michigan Monday written here shortly. So that will do it for all of us here. I want to thank you for tuning in. As a reminder, BuckeyeHuddle.com for all of your Ohio State needs, for all of your Michigan Monday needs. Look us up there. If you're watching on YouTube now, please go ahead and subscribe. If you haven't, hit that bell to be notified when we drop videos like this. And Tom's Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning podcast every day now that we're into this season. Always tons of stuff there. Plenty of other podcasts coming. Kevin Noon's Big Me Kickoff is also there as well. And we'll have more for you there on all of your podcast platforms. Just search Buckeye Huddle. You'll find what you need there. So thank you all for joining us, and we will talk to you guys later.